whispers through bone.
The desert night stretched vast and unyielding, a blanket of ink pierced by countless stars that shimmered like cold embers scattered across the heavens. Kalen perched atop a high dune, the bone flute resting gently between his calloused fingers. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of dry earth and distant sage, and a soft breeze stirred the worn edges of his tattered cloak. He drew a slow breath and lifted the flute to his lips, the cool bone smooth and familiar against his mouth. As he exhaled, a single haunting note slipped forth, a sound both fragile and resolute, echoing into the silence like a whispered secret. The melody grew, delicate threads of sound weaving through the night air, curling and twisting like tendrils of smoke over the sand. Each note seemed to carry weight memories half remembered, shadows of a life long fragmented. The desert, vast and indifferent, listened as if it had always known this song. Kellen's eyes closed, and the world dissolved into the music. He could feel the ache of solitude pressing against his ribs, the loneliness that had become his constant companion since the village fire that had claimed his family and scattered his past to the winds. Beneath the silent stars, the flute's voice was a tether to something deeper, a bridge between the lost and the living. It sang of ancient sorrows and fragile hope, winding through the echoes of forgotten gods and the dust of time. The melody stirred faint shapes in the distance glimmers of light that flickered like the ghost of a distant dream. Spirits, perhaps, or memories given fleeting form by the music's mournful call. Kellen's hands trembled slightly, the weight of the flute's power pressing heavily upon him. He had felt it grow stronger with each song, a pull toward something vast and unknowable beneath the dunes. The burden was immense, yet the call to understand it was irresistible. From the shadows, a soft rustle of sand announced Mira's arrival. Her presence was steady and grounding, a dark silhouette against the star-streaked sky. She seated herself beside him without a word, offering a silent companionship that spoke volumes. Her sharp eyes met his, steady and understanding in the flickering moonlight. "You carry more than the flute's burden," Myra said softly, her voice a low balm against the vast silence. "Your heart plays a melody all its own." Kalen smiled faintly, a tired gesture that barely touched the sorrow in his gaze. "Sometimes I fear the song will be the last thing I ever play." Myra reached out, her hand brushing against his wrist, a simple touch that anchored him to the present. "You are not alone, Kalen. Even the desert is not endless when shared with another." The two sat beneath the stars, sharing stories and silence alike. Mira spoke of her lineage, of the sacred sites she was sworn to protect, and the heavy price of knowledge. Kalen listened, feeling the threads of their lives intertwine, like the notes of his flute, each voice a vital part of the song. As the night deepened, the music faded to a gentle hum, and the ephemeral figures that had lingered at the edges of vision vanished into the sand's embrace. The desert exhaled, the eternal quiet returning as if to hold its breath. Kalen looked upward, the endless expanse of stars reflecting the turmoil within. His journey was far from over, the path ahead fraught with peril and uncertainty. Yet in that moment, beneath the silent stars, a fragile hope stirred a melody not yet finished, a story still unfolding. He lifted the bone flute once more, fingers poised to play the next note, the desert listening. The music whispered promises, ancient and eternal, carried on the desert wind as dawn crept quietly over the horizon. The night had taught him that even in solitude, connection could be found in shared stories, in the haunting beauty of a melody, and in the steadfast presence of a friend. And so, Kalen played on, weaving the past with the present, the living with the dead, beneath the silent stars that watched over the endless sands. As the first light of morning painted the dunes in hues of gold and rose, the flute's last note lingered in the air, a soft, mournful echo that promised both endings and beginnings. Kaelin knew that the weight of the flute's power would only grow heavier, but so too would the strength he found in companionship and the music that bound them all. And with that, the desert held its breath once more, waiting for the next song to awaken the sands. The desert sun hung merciless and unyielding over the endless dunes, a blazing orb that cast sharp shadows and baked the earth beneath Kellen's weary boots. He squinted against the glare, his fingers brushing the bone flute nestled in his satchel. The weight of the instrument was heavier than mere bone and weathered carvings. It carried the burden of ancient power, a whisper of the gods long buried beneath the sand. Beside him, Mira's sharp eyes scanned the horizon, her hand never far from the curved dagger strapped to her belt. "They're close," she murmured, voice low as the wind stirred grains of sand around their feet. "The cult. I can feel their presence like shadows creeping beneath the sun." Kaelin nodded, heart tightening. The whispers on the wind had become shouts in recent days, rumors carried from village to village of the bone flute's awakening and the return of the shrouded god. The cultists who worshipped Azareth were no longer content to lurk in secrecy. They sought to claim the flute and unleash their god upon the desert once more. They found a narrow cleft between jagged rocks where the searing heat lessened just enough for a brief respite. The two settled, careful not to disturb the fragile silence that had settled over the land like a shroud. Kaelin drew the flute from his bag, tracing its delicate etchings with reverent fingers. The carvings seemed to shift in the sunlight, revealing faces and symbols that defied time itself. "We can't outrun them," Mira said, eyes narrowing. "We have to face this." Before Kaelin could answer, a soft rustle caught their attention. From the shadows emerged Ellian, his silver hair catching the sunlight like strands of moonlight woven into day. His eyes glittered with a mix of mischief and something darker, a concealed storm beneath his calm exterior. "I see the desert breathes with unrest," Ellian said, his voice smooth as silk but edged with caution. "I come bearing knowledge, though it may not bring comfort." Callan's gaze hardened. Ellian's sudden appearance was both a relief and a warning. The traveler's reputation preceded him, a former priest of Azareth's cult, or so the whispers said. Trust was a luxury Kaelin could ill afford. "Speak," Kaelin commanded, the flute pressing against his palm like a pulse. Ellian's smile faltered, the weight of confession settling over him. Azareth's followers have grown bold. They seek to harness the flute's power to awaken their god. I once walked their path, drawn by promises of power and purpose. But I have seen the cost. Myra's hand tightened around her dagger, eyes sharp. "Why should we believe you?" "Because," Ellian sighed, "I want to stop what I helped set in motion. But my past is a chain I cannot break easily." The desert wind carried distant chants, faint yet unmistakable, an ominous hymn rising like a tide. The cultists were near, their intent clear. Colin's fingers curled around the flute. The choice weighed on him, to play and risk unleashing chaos, or to surrender and lose the chance to protect those he cared for. "We stand at a precipice," he said softly. "The flute is the key, but also the lock. If we fail, the desert will drown in shadows." As the cultists closed in, chanting in a language older than the dunes, Kaelin raised the flute to his lips. The first note was a whisper, a haunting melody that stirred the very air. The desert seemed to hold its breath, the sands trembling as ghostly figures shimmered in the heat haze. The cultists faltered, caught between reverence and terror. Myra sprang into action, blade flashing as she defended Kaelin from the advancing fanatics. Ellian watched, torn between old loyalties and newfound resolve, his eyes flickering with conflict. The moment hung suspended, fragile as a desert flower in bloom. Kellen's music wove through the chaos, a tapestry of sorrow and defiance, calling forth the restless spirits of the desert's forgotten past. The battle lines were drawn, not just between mortal foes, but between the echoes of ancient wrath and the fragile hope of redemption. Callan's heart pounded, the weight of the flute heavier than ever. Trust was a scarce commodity, and the desert's silence had been broken. The awakening was underway, and with it, the promise of a reckoning that would shape the fate of all beneath the eternal sun. As the melody swelled, a sudden gust swept across the dunes, carrying with it a whispering promise and a chilling warning. The cultists retreated for now, but their eyes burned with fanatic resolve. Elian stepped closer, his voice a low murmur. "This is only the beginning." Callan met his gaze, uncertainty and resolve entwined. The path ahead was shrouded in sand and shadow, but the bone flute's song would be their guide, whether to salvation or ruin. And somewhere beneath the shifting dunes, Azareth stirred. The sun dipped lower as the desert's heat softened into a golden haze. Callan, Mira, and Elian found a momentary sanctuary beneath a rocky outcrop. The air was thick with dust and tension, the silence punctuated by the distant calls of desert birds and the whisper of the wind. "We can't keep running," Mira said, her voice steady despite the weariness etched into her features. "The cult's numbers grow. They will come again, stronger and more desperate." Elian nodded, eyes fixed on the horizon where shadows lengthened. "I will aid you, but know this my past may haunt us. The cult is not so easily shaken." Callan looked at the bone flute resting on his lap, the carvings glowing faintly in the twilight. "And we must be ready. The desert is listening." As night fell, the desert's secrets deepened, and the cult of the shrouded god prepared to reclaim what was lost. The battle for the flute and the soul of the desert had only just begun. Callan's fingers tightened around the bone flute. The desert around him seemed to pulse with ancient energy, the weight of unseen eyes pressing down from the dunes. The cultists' chanting grew louder, a chorus of shadows seeking to drown the melody of life. He glanced at Mira, whose dark eyes burned with fierce determination, and then at Elian, whose silver hair caught the moonlight like a blade's edge, beautiful, dangerous, uncertain. The choice was his alone, and the desert awaited his song. The desert sun hung low, casting a golden haze over the endless sea of sand dunes that stretched beyond the horizon. Callan felt the weight of the bone flute heavy in his satchel, its presence a constant reminder of the unseen forces stirring beneath the desert's surface. Beside him, Myra moved with practiced ease, her sharp eyes scanning the shifting landscape as if reading a language only she could understand. "The place is near," Mira said, voice low and steady, yet carrying the unmistakable weight of reverence. "My ancestors swore an oath to guard it, to keep it hidden from those who would seek to unravel its secrets." Callan nodded, feeling a mix of curiosity and caution. The desert was a keeper of memories, but some memories were better left buried. Yet here they were, drawn inexorably toward a place that promised answers, or perhaps new dangers. Their footsteps stirred the fine sand as they approached a cluster of ancient stones half buried beneath the dunes. The entrance to the sacred site yawned before them, framed by crumbling pillars etched with symbols that pulsed faintly with forgotten magic. Callan's heart quickened. The air here was different, cooler, heavier with the scent of earth and dust, of time itself preserved. Mira stepped forward, her fingers brushing over a weathered carving depicting intertwined serpents and celestial bodies. "These markings tell of the war among gods," she explained, her voice a whisper. "A war that shattered the heavens and buried Azareth beneath these sands. Our people became guardians, watchers over what remains." Callan studied the symbols, feeling the pull of ancient power radiating from the stones. He carefully retrieved the bone flute, its surface cold and smooth against his fingers. Tentatively, he raised it to his lips and played a soft, haunting melody, a tune woven from threads of sorrow and hope. The notes echoed through the ruins, stirring something unseen. A faint shimmer rose along the walls, spectral echoes flickering like mirages in the fading light. The sand outside swirled gently, whispering secrets lost to time. Myra's eyes remained fixed on the horizon, dark and alert. Suddenly, a tremor rippled through the ground, causing dust to cascade from the cracked ceiling. She drew her curved dagger with a swift motion, voice low and urgent. The cultists grow bolder. They are close, seeking to desecrate this place and unleash what should remain silent. Kellen's gaze hardened. The flute's power was a double-edged sword, capable of awakening both wonder and ruin. As the desert's ancient memories stirred, so too did the shadows that coveted them. Together, they prepared to face whatever came next, guardians of a buried past whose echoes might yet shape the desert's future. The wind rose again, carrying with it the faintest whisper of a melody yet to be played, a song that would decide the fate of gods and men alike. But beneath the shifting sands, deeper secrets waited, silent and watchful, as the desert held its breath. The desert air hung heavy, thick with the fading light of day and the promise of night's cool embrace. Kalen sat cross-legged upon a ridge of sand, the bone flute resting lightly in his hands, its smooth surface cool against his fingers, despite the lingering heat of the sun. Nearby, Elian lounged with a careless grace, his silver hair catching the dying light, casting a faint halo around his head. The traveler's eyes gleamed with that ever-present slyness, a grin tugging at the corner of his lips, as if he held secrets meant only for himself. "You play well," Elian said softly, breaking the silence that had stretched between them like a taut wire. "But you have no idea what this flute truly can do." Kellen's gaze lifted, meeting the traveler's confident stare. "And you do." "Perhaps," Elian replied, leaning forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "The melodies you coax from those bones are but the surface of a deeper song, a song that can bend the will of gods and mortals alike." The desert wind stirred, carrying the faint scent of sage and sand. Kellen's fingers tightened around the flute. "I seek to understand its power, not to wield it for destruction." Elian's grin widened, shadows flickering across his face. "Ah, but power is never so easily contained. To know is to desire. To desire is to risk." With a smooth motion, Elian reached into his robes and drew out a slender reed flute, worn and weathered by time. He lifted it to his lips and began to play. The notes were unlike anything Kalen had ever heard, a weaving of sorrow and seduction, a melody that stirred the very soul of the desert. The sands seemed to shift in rhythm, the air thick with a palpable magic. Kalen closed his eyes, the music wrapping around him like a velvet cloak. Images flickered behind his eyelids, ancient ceremonies beneath starlit skies, gods walking among mortals, the bone flute raised high as a key to forgotten power. The visions were intoxicating, a promise of knowledge and strength beyond his wildest dreams. When Elian's playing ceased, the silence was almost deafening. "You see," Elian murmured, his voice a honeyed temptation, "with this flute, you could reshape the desert's fate. No longer a lost wanderer, but a master of forgotten powers." Kalen opened his eyes, the weight of the traveler's words pressing down upon him. "And at what cost?" Before Elian could reply, a sharp voice cut through the tension. "At too great a cost, if you ask me." Mayra emerged from the shadows, her dark eyes flashing with fierce determination. Her hand rested on the curved dagger at her waist, and the satchel of herbs swung gently at her side. "You don't know what you're playing with, Elian. The cult's promises are lies wrapped in poison." Elian's smile faltered for a moment, but his charm quickly returned. "And yet, Myra, it is you who clings to old fears, while Kalen stands on the edge of something new." Myra's gaze hardened. "New or not, the desert's balance is fragile. The power you tempt him with could bring ruin to us all." Kalen felt torn between the two forces pulling at him. Elian's seductive allure and Myra's grounding wisdom. The desert around them seemed to hold its breath, the wind whispering secrets just beyond reach. "I need to know," Kalen said finally, his voice low but resolute. "Not just the power, but the truth." Elian stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Then follow me. There are places where the past still sings, where the flute's secrets lie buried. But beware, once you hear the deeper song, there's no turning back." Myra's eyes flashed warning, but she said nothing, knowing the choice belonged to Kalen. As night fell, the trio set out beneath the stars, the desert's vastness stretching endlessly around them. Elian's melody lingered in Kalen's mind, a siren call that promised both illumination and peril. Hours later, at a hidden oasis shielded by jagged rocks, Elian revealed faded carvings etched into ancient stone. "These markings tell of the flute's origin," he explained, tracing the grooves with a finger. "A relic forged in a war between gods, a key to awakening power long forgotten." Kalen studied the symbols, feeling the weight of history pressing down. "And the cult. They seek to use that power to bring Azrith back," Elian said quietly, "to restore what was lost. But at what price?" Mira stepped forward, her voice firm. "A price too high. We must stop them." Elian's eyes flickered, a hint of conflict beneath his polished exterior. Perhaps the desert needs a new guardian, one who can wield the flute's power without fear. Kalen's heart pounded. The choice before him was no longer just about survival. It was about destiny. Could he embrace such power without losing himself? Or would the desert's ancient wrath consume him? The night deepened, shadows lengthening like fingers reaching for the soul. Kalen lifted the bone flute to his lips once more, the notes flowing from him. A delicate balance of hope and warning, a song that echoed across the sands, inviting the dawn. But beneath the melody, a question lingered. Which path would he choose when the desert demanded its answer? The desert wind carried his song far and wide, a melody of temptation and resolve, and the night listened with bated breath. The desert twilight stretched long and low, painting the sands in hues of molten gold and bruised purple, as Kalen lifted the bone flute to his lips. The air was thick with the scent of dry earth and distant rain, though no cloud marred the endless sky. His fingers trembled slightly, the weight of the instrument, both physical and spiritual. Around him, the dunes whispered in the wind, as if waiting with bated breath for the melody to come. With a slow, deliberate breath, Kalen began to play. The notes poured forth, hollow and haunting, weaving into the silence like a thread of silver through black velvet. The melody rose and fell, carrying the melancholy of forgotten years, the sorrow of lives long past, and the fragile hope of those still tethered to the living world. As the music seeped into the sands, the desert seemed to respond, a subtle shiver in the air, a soft susurration that grew into voices. At first, they were faint, like distant echoes on the wind. Then, gradually, ghostly forms emerged from the haze of heat and dust, flickering and wavering like candle flames caught in a breeze. These were spirits unlike those Kalen had summoned before, deeper, older, more potent. Their faces bore the marks of ancient grief and wrath, their eyes reflecting the endless desert night. Mira stood close by, her dark eyes sharp and alert, every muscle coiled like a spring. She held her curved dagger ready, the leather of her satchel rustling softly as she shifted stance. "Kalen," she said quietly, voice taut with urgency, "these are no mere echoes. They carry the weight of old wounds, things best left to rest." Kalen nodded, his fingers pausing on the flute, but the spirits pressed closer, drawn by the music and the power it unleashed. One spirit, tall and regal, stepped forward. His form was translucent, yet his presence commanded the space like a king of old. His voice whispered in a language Kalen did not know, yet somehow understood, a lament of betrayal, a call for reckoning. Elian leaned against a nearby dune, silver hair catching the last light, his grin enigmatic and unreadable. "They grow restless," he murmured, eyes glittering with something unreadable. "Power such as this always comes at a price." Kellen's heart pounded, torn between awe at the beauty of the spirits and dread at their sorrowful wrath. He felt the weight of responsibility settle heavy upon him. The flute was no mere instrument. It was a key to a realm best left undisturbed. "We must be cautious," Myra urged, stepping protectively closer. "The desert does not forgive lightly." As the melody faltered and the last note lingered in the cooling air, the spirits began to waver, their forms dissolving back into the sands from which they had arisen. The desert fell into a pregnant silence, thick with unspoken warnings. Kalen lowered the flute, his gaze distant. "What have I unleashed?" he whispered, the question heavy with the burden of consequences yet to unfold. Elian's grin faded, replaced by a shadow of seriousness. "The desert holds many secrets, Bard, and some voices are harder to silence than others." The night deepened around them, stars gleaming cold and distant. The desert had spoken, and in its voice echoed not only the dead, but the fragile thread that bound past and present, and the perilous path Kalen now walked. The melody of the bone flute had opened doors, and whether those doors led to salvation or ruin remained a question only time could answer. In the stillness, Kalen felt the eyes of the desert upon him, ancient and patient, waiting for the next note, the next step, the next choice that would shape all their fates. He tightened his grip on the flute, a silent vow stirring in his chest to master this power, to protect what remained, and to face whatever shadows the desert yet concealed. The voices from the deep had spoken. Now Kellen's song must continue, but at what cost? And as the wind swirled once more, carrying the faintest echo of a melody long forgotten, the desert held its breath, waiting for the story yet to be told. The desert was restless. It whispered warnings beneath the rising wind, a sound not unlike the distant echo of a flute's melancholy song. Kalen sat atop a ridge, the bone flute cradled in his hands, its ancient carvings cold against his weathered fingers. Above him, the sky darkened with an unnatural heaviness, clouds roiling like a storm brewing beyond the horizon. The sun was a fading ember swallowed by the encroaching dusk, and the wind carried with it the scent of dust and danger. Myra stood nearby, her sharp eyes scanning the shifting sands below. The flicker of a distant fire caught her attention, and she motioned silently to Kalen. "They gather," she said, her voice low but edged with urgency. "The cultists. Their numbers grow every night." Kalen nodded, a tight knot forming in his chest. The bone flute felt heavier now, burdened not just with its own power, but the knowledge of what its melodies might summon. He lifted it to his lips, and the first notes slipped into the wind, a slow, haunting melody that seemed to weave itself into the very fabric of the desert air. Elian appeared from the shadows, his silver hair catching the last light of day. He smiled that sly, enigmatic grin, but there was no warmth in it tonight. "You play as if the desert itself might listen," he remarked, voice low and cautious. "Perhaps it does," Kalen replied. "Or perhaps it's the gods beneath the sands who hear." The three of them settled into a tense vigil, the desert around them alive with unseen movement. The cultists' encampment lay hidden in a ravine, a flickering constellation of torchlight and chanting voices that rose and fell like the breath of some slumbering beast. Their songs were a twisted mirror of Kellen's own melodies, dark, fervent, and filled with a desperate hunger. Myra tightened her grip on the curved dagger at her side. "They believe Azrith will return to them," she said quietly, "to restore the desert's forgotten power. But the cost will be ruin." Elian's gaze flickered toward the horizon, where the first rumble of thunder rolled across the dunes. Power, he mused, is a tempting thing, even for those who fear it. Kellen's fingers danced across the flute, coaxing a melody that was both warning and plea. The notes were fragile threads stretched across the growing storm, seeking to hold back the tide of chaos. Each breath he took seemed to draw deeper into the desert's ancient memory, a place where gods had once walked and men had dared to challenge fate. The wind rose sharply, carrying with it the scent of sand and smoke. From the encampment came a sudden chorus of cries, a surge of fervor that sent ripples through the night. Shadows moved like living things, and the earth itself seemed to tremble beneath their feet. "They're coming," Mira whispered, eyes narrowing. Elian's hand fell to the small dagger at his belt, his expression somber. "Then we must be ready." As the first drops of rain fell, cold and surprising in the desert's heat, Kellen's melody swelled, a desperate harmony that sought to bind the restless spirits and hold the darkness at bay. The flute's voice was a fragile beacon in the gathering storm, a fragile hope amidst the gathering shadows. The desert held its breath, and the storm broke. The night was alive with the clash of wills. Cultists surged forward, chanting Azrith's name in a fervent chorus beneath the thunderous sky. Torches flared like dying stars, casting grotesque shadows upon the swirling sands. Mira moved like a shadow herself, her dagger flashing in the firelight as she defended Kalen, who continued to pour his soul into the bone flute. Elian fought beside them, his magic flickering like sparks against the encroaching darkness. Yet his eyes betrayed the struggle within, torn between allegiance and doubt. The desert was a battlefield, the very air thick with the scent of ozone and ancient power awakening. The ground beneath their feet trembled, as if the buried gods themselves stirred in response to the music and the madness. Kellen's hands ached, the flute's notes rising to a crescendo that shook the night. The wind howled in answer, carrying the melody across the dunes and into the hearts of those who would listen, or be consumed. In the distance, a figure cloaked in shifting shadows and sand rose slowly, eyes burning like embers in the storm. Azrith, the shrouded god, was awakening. Kellen's breath caught. The melody faltered, a fragile thread trembling on the edge of silence. "Hold fast," Mira urged, her voice fierce amid the chaos. "We stand at the brink." Elian's glance met Kellen's, a silent promise or a warning, the line between friend and foe thinner than ever before. And as the storm reached its crescendo, the desert's fragile balance teetered on the edge of oblivion. Kellen's music was all that stood between salvation and ruin. The gathering storm had come,